It's no secret I'm a fan of SpiritSwap. The team are building some of the most reliably awesome tools on the Phantom ecosystem. Right now, we're in the middle of the Spirit Bribe Wars, where DAOs and protocols are throwing serious money behind their Spirit tokens. My early content on this channel actually caught their attention, and they asked me to host their tutorial series, where we've helped thousands of you onto the Phantom network through their platform. So, I was thrilled when they offered to share a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at the new V2 version of SpiritSwap that is moments away from release. Strap yourself in, because this is going to be one of the most epic DeFi deep dives that we've done on this channel. I'll be covering the ins and outs of what the V2 protocol encompasses and some of the exciting updates they've made under the hood. Without further ado, let's jump in. SpiritSwap's V2 upgrade can be broken down into three categories. Number one, a complete rebuild of the codebase and a revamp of the entire UI. Number two, fundamental upgrades to the supporting smart contracts, protocol infrastructure, and AMM architecture. And number three, a reallocation of fee distribution structures and Guage proxy emission ratios. All right, let's cover these upgrades in detail. Let's talk about the complete rebuild of the codebase and subsequent revamp of the entire UI. As you may see straight up, Soli has undergone some cosmetic surgery, some being an understatement. You will notice the entire layout of the SpiritSwap application has changed for a more simplified, crisp, clean, and professional look. The new user interface embodies that playful nature of Soli. The key elements are kept minimalistic, but still offer the layers of detail that more seasoned DeFi users expect from a Tier 1 DEX. There is a real flow to the experience. They've morphed the homepage so it now doubles as your portfolio page. It gives a detailed overview of all your positions, including single held assets, LP positions, farm, win spirit, lending and borrowing, as well as ape mode positions. This was actually my go-to page on V1 because I can see all of my positions across the key features offered on the protocol. So it's great that they've brought this right up front. Let me show you a simple example. So for this, I'll set up a brand new wallet. And as you can see, I don't currently have any positions open. This is treating me as a new user and is part of SpiritSwap's new smart interaction codebase. By recognizing I don't have any assets in my wallet, the DEX prompts me to bridge tokens from another network. It also reverts to the same functionality in farming and LPs. As I don't have any LP positions, it prompts me to add LPs and start farming. It's a real step up in usability. I've mentioned in some of my previous tutorials on SpiritSwap on this channel that the original V1 was a fork of the Uni V2 codebase. This SpiritSwap V2 codebase is 100% proprietary, meaning they have developed every inch of this new look from scratch. It's a monumental thing to achieve in 3 months, and as you can see, it is unlike any other DEX out there. Let's quickly check out some of the highlights. The UI now allows for multi-token LPs to be created, enabling multi-pools for stable swap integration. Farms are now separated out into multiple sections for various Guage proxies. There's classic AMM, stable AMM, and permissionless farms. We'll unpack these later in the video. The UI now lets you go deeper and get a more accurate understanding when looking at in-spirit stats. The in-spirit page is now a hub for bribes, offering protocols the ability to set up a bribe for their Guage directly within the in-spirit page, or subsequently for users to shortlist farms that are currently offering bribes and vote on them directly. The new bribe contract integrates directly within the in-spirit Bribe UI, meaning users can now claim bribes they've participated in while claiming their weekly in-spirit distribution. The new Bribe button allows developers to seamlessly allocate bribes to their desired Guages, which takes the laborious nature out of the previous manual airdrop approach. While the Claim Rewards section allows users to claim bribes whilst claiming their weekly in-spirit distribution. And I'll also mention in this part that hitting the claimable bribe and vote fee button acts as a double claim function. This will claim bribes and also the vote fee in the form of LP tokens. Now, that's on the surface. But I've told you this thing has been taken apart and optimized piece by piece. So let's dive deeper into the supporting smart contracts, protocol infrastructure, and AMM architecture. Let's talk about the stable AMM. This is the most notable upgrade. It is the integration of a balancer-style AMM, formerly known as a stable swap. Stable swap provides a mechanism to create cross markets for stablecoins in a way which could be called Uniswap with leverage. It's a fully autonomous market maker for stablecoins with very minimal price slippage, as well as an efficient fiat savings account for liquidity providers on the other side. So this does so in 4 ways. Number 1, supporting incentivization of the lending network. Number 2, recognizing the importance of offering frictionless swaps for stablecoins in a decentralized marketplace. Number 3, peg support for SpiritSwap's win partner LPs, for example, Lin, Jin, and Rain Spirit LPs. And then number 4, the ability to integrate weighted pools, which are an attractive new approach to liquidity provision, as they limit impermanent loss for LP providers. So let's talk about lending for a second. With their lending network, they've always seemed to have faced difficulty in how to incentivize it with maximum efficiency. Previously, SpiritSwap has been incentivizing lending and borrowing via treasury funds through the Rainmaker contract, but it just wasn't cost effective. So they have decided to add a stable AMM into the mix. A stable AMM now enables SpiritSwap to restructure how the lending network is incentivized. Any pools that are not currently utilized by the AMM itself will now be used to feed the lending network. This means the lending network itself is actually incentivized via the pools it pulls liquidity from. This way, if the AMM isn't using your liquidity, thus not earning you any fees, the lending network will tap into these funds and enable you to profit one way or the other. It squashes the dreaded dormant liquidity issue. Now, this is actually an ingenious way to squeeze every drop of profitability out of user capital. With this AMM architecture offering stable peg support, it also means SpiritSwap can now give more effective output on stable trades. But it also offers partner WinSpirit pairs a more targeted solution to peg functionality. As someone with a sizable position in these pairs, this is a huge win. For this integration, WinSpirit pairs will now have a much more effective peg, as demonstrated by the current LinSpirit Spirit pair on Beethoven. This will now entice WinSpirit pairs to stay where they belong and retain profitability. Avoiding de-pegging of these pairs caused by sell-offs mean in-spirit holders won't miss out on the fees captured by any trading of the in-spirit pairs that are currently based on other AMMs. By offering a more competitive output delivery on stable pairs, SpiritSwap will be more competitive in the aggregator space, which means better returns for its users. Now, let's talk about the Bridge Aggregator. My very first video on SpiritSwap was about the SpiritSwap Bridge. The now revamped Bridge will open its floodgates, effectively turning into a bridge aggregator, supporting swaps across every EVM chain imaginable and pumping more and more capital onto the protocol. Also, another cool upgrade to the bridge is the fact that swaps can now be made in tandem with this bridging. This is actually something I've personally been craving because I've had to in the past leave the protocol and go use something like multichain.org for this feature. But now, for example, you can bridge BNB on BSC to SPIRIT on FTM. This effectively makes Spirit Bridge a cross-chain, cross-asset swap platform. Okay, let's talk about the new UI for bribes. The lucrative in-spirit model has seen in-spirit holders relish in bribes offered by protocols who want to bolster their gauge with sustainable emissions. Within the first 3 weeks of bribes going live, in-spirit holders were bribed in excess of $282,000. The Spirit bribe wars do not look like slowing down. Running snapshots and facilitating airdrops for bribes takes a lot of work behind the scenes. It's dev time that could be going into other parts of the protocol. So they have simplified the bribe process for both developers and community. Developers of projects who have gauges with SpiritSwap can now offer a bribe and set this up directly within the Spirit UI. And in-spirit holders who participate in bribes can also collect their bribes directly within the in-spirit page at the end of each distribution block, along with their in-spirit rewards. Now, I told you we'd talk about permissionless farms. Another big bonus for developers is incorporating farming as a service to the ecosystem pools. This allows any developer to incentivize their own liquidity. If these pools do well and generate good volume for in-spirit holders, these farms may get promoted to Guages at a later stage. With this function, budding developers can set up their own farm on SpiritSwap in a permissionless manner. The incentive for the developer here is that this initial farm, incentivized by the protocol in question, could eventually lead to a SpiritSwap incentivized Guage if the farm does well and generates good fees for the community. Finally, let's talk about the reallocation of the fee distribution structure and Guage proxy emission ratios. To be more aggressive and competitive in the DeFi space, SpiritSwap recognized they needed to change fees and Guage emission allocation. They've changed the allocation of fees in 3 areas: the classic AMM Guages, stable AMM Guages, and permissionless farms. Let's look at classic AMM Guages. In a massive move in terms of Phantom ecosystem dexes, they're actually decreasing the classic AMM fee to 0.01%, which is even lower than they were initially intending, and establishing an even more competitive fee of 0.01% for the new stable AMM. They're really taking on aggregator traffic with this update and making it more lucrative for their fee earners. 25% will go to the base fee. It's exactly the same as the current in-spirit distribution. This means increasing in-spirit distributor rewards from 16.6% of the fee to 25% of the fee. These are rewards that all in-spirit holders collect. Another 25% of fees will go to the new protocol fee model. It's a rebate to protocols who list LPs with SpiritSwap, for example, Liquid Driver. Out of all the fees collected on Liquid Driver's liquidity pools, 25% of these will be given back to the protocol who lists with SpiritSwap. This incentive will be an enticement to new and emerging protocols looking to launch on Phantom. It will see SpiritSwap capture a much larger allocation of liquidity provision, as it is an extra revenue model for protocols. This incentivizes protocols to add more liquidity with SpiritSwap, which deepens liquidity. Deeper liquidity on the exchange means more optimal trade output. More optimal trade output means more trades going through SpiritSwap routers, which in turn means more fees collected. This establishes a positive feedback loop of liquidity provided versus fees collected by the protocol. This positive feedback loop is further supercharged as it's expected this 25% protocol fee distributed to each respective protocol will be used as protocol-owned liquidity to farm more Spirit. It's expected that these protocols will then use the Spirit farmed to lock up for in-Spirit and use that in-Spirit to further boost their Guages. That is a win for the SpiritSwap ecosystem, a win for the protocols involved, and a win for SpiritSwap users, due to the deeper liquidity on the platform. Now, I've got a special message to these protocols. I've been told by the SpiritSwap team that to collect this fee, each protocol who lists with SpiritSwap must reach out to them to establish a chain of communication and provide a multi-sig controlled wallet to accept this weekly fee. In the event that the team doesn't reach out, or if the LP is from an LP that doesn't have a core team, for example, ETH USDC, then this protocol fee will revert back to the SpiritSwap protocol DAO treasury wallet. It's an income stream to further bolster the DAO treasury for treasury investments and to fund ongoing development, marketing, and protocol maintenance costs. The final 50% of fees will go to the voting fee model. The voting fee model borrows the Solidity model and applies it to SpiritSwap's metrics. The voting fee is exactly the same as the base fee. However, fees earned from this model are only paid to people who voted on the Guages that this LP represents. For example, if you voted 100% of your Guage voting weight to an LP that has high volume, you will receive more Spirit in your weekly distribution. This is because you are reaping the rewards of a high volume LP. You will receive this fee in the form of the LP that the Guage represents. When you claim rewards from the new bribe and vote fee rewards button, it harvests both bribes and vote fees at the same time, as it uses the smart contract. This button will usually be clicked in tandem when you claim your weekly in-spirit rewards. Double the rewards, double the fun. The reason behind this upgrade is to try and distribute votes more evenly among critical LPs that need good emission incentives in order to offer deeper liquidity for critical pairs like USDC Phantom. This disincentivizes concentrated emissions on low volume pairs, as votes on low volume pairs will not reap any rewards as the pair is underachieving in volume, which is not beneficial to the protocol. This approach is aimed at achieving the following 3 things. Number one, establishing deeper liquidity for core pairs that are important to the growth of SpiritSwap. Number two, have less concentration on votes on low volume gauges and distribute votes to pairs that warrant higher emission ratios. And number three, to reward users that vote with the protocol's best intentions at heart, rather than blanket profiteering. Now, just a note, of the LPs that don't have a gauge, for example, a permissionless farm LP, this 50% voting fee will be reverted back to the LP rather than going to the Spirit Maker contract. And there's also changes to the stable AMM fee structure. The stable AMM fee structure is a little bit more simplistic. Of the 0.01 fees collected, 50% will go to the base fee. The base fee is exactly the same as the current in-spirit distribution. This means in-spirit holders will be receiving 50% of all fees collected from stable swaps. And the other 50% will go to the LPs, which is the same as the current concept. 50% of the fees will go directly to the liquidity pool providers. For example, if someone swaps $1,000 of USDC DAI, 0.05 cents will go to users supplying to the USDC DAI LP. And finally, the permissionless farm fee structure. Falling under the classic AMM category, a 0.18% fee will be charged on all swaps for permissionless farm LPs, or any LPs that aren't supported by gauges. As such, 25% will go to the base fee, 25% of fees will go to the new protocol fee model, meaning protocols that incentivize their own liquidity on the DEX will be rewarded and incentivized to do so with fee reward incentives. And 50% will go to LPs, as a gauge vote fee is not applicable to LPs that are not supported by gauges. But Cade, what about gauge emissions, you ask? Well, there will be 5 separate gauge proxies established moving forward. Each gauge will hold the following weight of emission distribution percentage each week during the weekly distributor epic reset. Boosted farm gauges will receive 45% of Spirit emissions each week moving forward. This means that of all Spirit rewards due to be distributed to each respective gauge proxy, 45% will be distributed among boosted farms. These emissions will then be divided among each respected boosted farm gauge, depending on the weekly vote they get from in-spirit holders. The stable farm gauges will receive 20% of emissions. This means out of all Spirit emissions distributed each week by the MasterChef contract, 20% will be allocated to gauges for stable farms. The remaining 35% of emissions will isolate USDC Phantom, Spirit Phantom, and Wind Spirit pairs under one gauge proxy. These will be non-votable and controlled by the team. This will be the only gauge proxy that is not voted on. The team will retain custody over these emissions and make sure sufficient liquidity incentives are provided for these crucial pairs. This new gauge proxy model is dynamic, meaning the numbers can shift around if the community votes to do so. However, it's clear that the SpiritSwap team have placed a lot of deep consideration into these numbers and carefully planned what is best for the DEX and the protocol to preserve emission allocations to where they are needed and allow for fair competition. This V2 rollout is mega. Each element has clearly had heaps of time put into its development. It's like they've taken every piece of user feedback and data and asked themselves, how can we make this better? This is what I love about Web3. The speed of iteration is unlike anything we've seen in the technology space. And what's even better is that us as users are firmly in the center. Chatting with the SpiritSwap team, they've told me that because the V2 codebase is entirely proprietary, updates and further development can be expected to be far quicker and efficient. I've even heard that there's a bunch of items in the backlog that are ready for rollout for version 2.5. So stay tuned for more updates. I actually had to come back in the studio to record an update that I'm just going to chuck in here quickly, because among the many updates to the various ecosystem economics, the tokenomics has had an overhaul to the benefit of in-spirit holders. The information, it's come straight from them, who are super hyped to introduce the world to their real yield model. So what is the real yield model? Well, the real yield model makes taking part in in-spirit more attractive, which in turn locks up more spirit. This in theory should have a positive impact on price movement due to scarcity. No matter what the Spirit emission rate is, as long as you have in-spirit locked, this mode ensures your percentage of the market cap will never get diluted. So, how do they do this, you might ask? It's actually quite simple. From the emissions sent from the master chef, a portion of this is automatically redirected to the fee distributor rather than the Guage proxies. For example, let's say 100,000 Spirit is to be emitted this week. 500 million Spirit is locked at this point, and 200 million Spirit is locked into in-spirit as we speak. 200 million divided by 500 million times 100,000 Spirit is 40,000 Spirit distributed to in-spirit holders this week, and 60,000 Spirit sent to Guages. This ensures in-spirit holders are getting a subsidized flow of the emissions to avoid them ever being diluted by farmers, making in-spirit more attractive. This is real yield, as it excludes additional in-spirit distributions for both the base fee and voting fee, meaning in-spirit holders now earn three ways. Number one, real yield subsidized emissions. Number two, the base fee, the fees used to buy Spirit and distribute to in-spirit holders. And number three, the vote fee paid out in the form of LP tokens. Essentially, in-spirit holders are now earning double Spirit rewards via the real yield and base fee models, plus LP rewards from the vote fee. This means depending on what Guages you vote for, you can earn Liquid Driver Phantom, Oath Phantom, or USDC DAE LPs all at once, and that's on top of Bribe rewards. Look, I told you that this DeFi deep dive was going to be mega, and I hope I've delivered. If you've listened through to here, let me assure you, you're going to make it. I've actually got a bunch of collaborators with me on this channel, and we've been thinking for a while about how we can focus more of our energies into helping demystify DeFi for fellow travelers who are on the road to financial freedom and happiness. And so we've decided to rename it Decent Living. I think it really represents what I personally want to achieve out of my life, and I hope it resonates in some way with you too. If you've enjoyed this video, help us reach more people by hitting that like and subscribe button. It really does make a difference. Best of luck in your own personal journey in Web3. I'll see you next time.